Welcome back to the SLT Podcast with myself, Ziggy Moore, More Education, all of that good stuff. Check me out. Instagram, More Education 01. We have
Miss 3, then specialist.
Can we find you?
It's educated.
Brilliant, on Instagram. Fantastic. And we've had guests upon guests upon guests. We have another guest. This is somebody who, from the first time I kind of entered education in Haringey, his name rang out. He has been in school leadership for nearly 20 years. He has been relentless in his role and everything that he does. It is genuinely a pleasure to have on somebody who, as I said, I looked up to when I first got into education, because it was like, this man over there, he's in touch. We have on Mr. Patrick Cozier.
Wow, that's an introduction. I'm filling up now. That feels so nice. No, honestly, no, it's a real pleasure to be here. I'm really happy to be here. I watch you guys when you do your podcasts and stuff, and
Thank you.
Some of the guests you have. And yeah, when you reached out and said, "Come on," I couldn't say yes quick enough.
Appreciate it. Yes, yeah. You've been in North London. You're a North London. Yeah, you're a North London boy.
I am. Grew up in Tottenham.
Yes.
Despite being a Gooner.
Yes. So you're a North, and it is. That's the story that I heard. I grew up in Tottenham as well. Yeah. Went into education. Wanted to keep it make sure I'm having an impact in my community. Yes. So because those have always been kind of my mantras in education. Early on, I was said, okay, that's the man who kind of those things resonate with. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to get onto all the stuff you've done in your headship and so on and so forth. But I wanted to start off with Calm Leadership.
Yeah.
So you founded Calm Leadership, and it's a very powerful name as well. Very powerful name. Can you give us a little bit of insight into what is Calm Leadership and what does it look like?
Yeah, so essentially, Calm Leadership is it's kind of a description of my own leadership journey and leadership style, and I guess it's for me, it's a way of leading which enables you to deal with the stresses of leadership. I think one of the things I feel really strongly is that you can be technically prepared to be a leader. You could have done all the tasks, and you can have the skill set and the experiences. But the one thing that I think is really hard to prepare for is how it feels.
Yeah.
And so the whole Calm Leadership thing is really addressing that. We're talking about things like imposter syndrome, the paranoia of leadership, adapting to how it feels, developing a sense of perspective, embracing that leadership is difficult and that's okay, and how all of those things can affect your thinking and your feeling. And so Calm Leadership, really, it's about speaking to people, coaching and mentoring people, and just helping them to prepare for embracing really the way that leadership feels. I think the word calm, it comes from. It's an interesting thing, actually, the story behind it, because when I was asked this question, 5-6 years ago, from head teachers who are newer to the profession than obviously I am, how do you still do this job? I've been doing it for 2-3 years and I feel like I've had enough. How come you're still doing it? Where's that energy come from? Do you still enjoy it? How come you still enjoy it? And the truth is, I didn't really know the answer to the question. I kind of just thought, I don't know, actually, I do. I just do it and I enjoy doing it. But there's a thing that me and my SLT do at the end of a year where we pass around a piece of paper with our names on the top, and each person writes a positive comment about a colleague, and it goes around the room, and when it comes back to you, you've got your list with the things that people have written. And 3 members out of the team, in what they'd written to me, had mentioned the word calm. And I thought, that's it. It's calm. That's my leadership style. It's a calm leadership.
Yeah.
We've not had that experience, have we?
What, a calm leadership?
No.
What? What's that?
I think like the leaders that we've worked under, we wouldn't describe them as being calm, would we?
You've got to be careful now.
Yeah. No, I'm candid.
He's trying to be.
No. Do you know what I'm thinking? I trust the leaders who I've worked with, who I respect highly. I trust, so I know no matter what happens, no matter how bad it is, we're gonna sort it out. So I trust their leadership. That's not all the leaders I've worked with, but the ones who I have, I know when we're in the trenches, I don't know, somehow they're gonna pull it out of the bag.
But you can trust someone without them being calm. I'm saying for 3 of your SLT to highlight that as one of your traits.
Yeah.
You know, credit to you, because that's testament, isn't it, of the way that you lead your team. And I'm saying that's not an adjective that we would automatically draw for leaders that we've worked under. But we move on.
Yeah.
I think for me, there's so much drama in the job. Anyway.
Yeah, it is moving at. So my question would be like, people underestimate how intense working in a school is. Yeah. So the question would be, how have you been able to maintain that level of kind of clarity and calm while being in a school that is moving at breakneck speed? Because if I remember, the school you're at, is it how many form entry is it? It's like
9 form entry.
Yeah, I remember it's a big school.
1,500 kids. 1,500 kids, about 150 members of staff. It's a big school.
And business. If that was a business, that would be like that's a quite a large, sizable business.
Yeah.
So give us the secret to all young leaders listening. What is the calm? How do we get there?
I think it's through. You have to go through stuff. The bad news is there's no shortcut. You have to go through stuff. And you have to be willing to go through stuff. I think the main thing for me is that, people talk about this thing that it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, a lot of it is about how you have to train yourself to process things in a certain way. Yeah. So, for example, one of my biggest fears when I first became a head teacher was the sheer level of responsibility for being the decision maker. You can have all the conversation in the world, but ultimately, if you don't come to a consensus with your team, you still have to make the decision. And that's kind of a really lonely part of it. And I've managed to move from a place of dreading being the person to make the decision to now I'm at a place where I'm really grateful that I get the opportunity to take that responsibility and attempt to get it right. And I use that phrase deliberately because you get lots of stuff wrong, and you have to get to a point where you're at peace with that. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes because you're human and you don't know everything. And so I think there are a number of things that you can do in terms of how you process things, how you think about things, that really help you to kind of lead in a calm way. I think the other thing that I would say is, and it's one of the phrases that I use, it's not about what you've got to do, it's about what you get to do. It's an opportunity. Embrace it as an opportunity to be positive about. I get the chance to make decisions and to lead people in a way that influences people's lives in a positive way. That's a privilege, and I genuinely believe that. And I think to some extent, part of the calm thing is a part of my personality anyway. I've never been a person to seek out drama. I think most of it though is about, as I say, how it plays out in your head.
Very interesting. And it's interesting that you mentioned the word loneliness, because a few heads that I've spoken to this year have commented on how lonely it is at the top. And I'm just like, well, where's your chair of governors? Because like the head has got their deputies to support them. Yeah. And I think that dynamic between the chair and the head is so important, because who else do you go to?
Yeah. Do you know what? It's a really interesting one, because you're right. The loneliness isn't what I think people often think it is, because you have people around you. So I remember I used to think the loneliness was, you have to kind of lock yourself in your office and you don't get too close to no one and all this. Oh, that's nonsense. The loneliness is actually the accountability and the decision-making part of it. And actually, your SLT is very supportive when, they're there, they do a good job, they help you make decisions, they keep you in check, people who are able to tell you the truth so that you stay grounded. Chair of governors is important, but ultimately they don't remove the loneliness, because their role is still to hold you to account. And so in the end, having a good relationship is an important thing, because it's important that you're aligned, so that when you're doing things, you know that you're doing them in the full knowledge and support of your governors. But ultimately, they're still there to hold you to account. So where do you get the support from? Colleagues. You have to have a good network of people around you who are disconnected with your particular situation, who you know and trust. People you can go to and say, look, I'm having a nightmare here. I don't know what to do. And people who can say, well, look, in my situation, this happened to me and I was able to do this. That's really important. And the other thing for me is coaching. I have a coach, and they just help you to have a space to just reflect, safely and openly. And I think all those things really help a lot.
Wonderful. One of the things that I know you've been very vocal about, and we kind of touched on it, was ensuring that every child has in essence, the opportunity to have an enriching, positive school experience. So kind of really inclusive.
Yeah.
How do you marry that idea with maintaining kind of very high expectations in a school?
Yeah, that's a really good one, because a lot of the accountability measures obviously don't align with inclusivity, and I think that's a problem. So I think in the end you have to find a balance that you are happy with. And we mentioned about governors, that governors are happy with too, because obviously the school's results are what they are and they're published and all the rest of it. The thing that I would say, and what I say to my staff, is that we have to judge ourselves by how we do with the children that need us the most. And that's the most important thing, because your results can look amazing because there are always a group of children in your school that frankly would do well wherever they went. So they're not your measure. Think about those children who need the school, who need their teachers, who need that input. How are they doing? Because if they're not doing well, then we have to look at it and say, well, then we're not doing well enough, because they are the benchmark. So that, for me, is the key thing. And in terms of what that looks like as an overall, accountability, P8 score and ALPS and all that kind of stuff, I worry about that less. But I have to say, I'll be honest, I worry about that increasingly less as I get further into my headship. In the early days, it wasn't like that. Those scores were everything. And now I kind of feel a little bit more relaxed about it, because my thing is actually, I know I'm doing a good job if our most vulnerable children are having a good experience and getting outcomes that allow them to move on to their next progression and all the rest of it.
Speaking about that kind of, and I love that. I always talk about the child. It's not the A stars you're looking at. It's the child who's gone from an E to a C. How have you? And oftentimes, as educators, we don't look at it like that, and we can have low expectations. How have you? Can you give me a scenario where you've really had to challenge low expectations?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because what you're essentially saying is progress is the most important thing. I think it's both. Progress is important because you have to look at it in terms of the journey that individual children are on. But I think there's also a reality that says that there is a benchmark through which, if children are able to achieve that, there are more opportunities that are open to them. So, in the old days, the 5A started to see with English and maths. Now, obviously, it's about getting your level 4s and 5s and all that kind of stuff. And you have to recognise that those benchmarks are significant, because that's the difference between a child being able to stay in our sixth form or not. Now, we haven't cracked it. It's still the case for us as a school that our cohort from year 7 to 11 isn't quite the same as our cohort post-16. So we are not where we need to be. We are moving in the right direction, and it's definitely improving, but we're not there yet. So it's about constantly reminding people of those messages. It is about saying, who are those most vulnerable children and how are they doing? And if they're not doing well, then we need to relook at what we're doing. But, we've all that stuff around, curriculum choices, making sure that, children are on the right pathways, that we're not dumbing down aspirations by saying, well, that's for you kids. And, so our curriculum is broad and balanced. We're reminding people in the classroom all the time, you are here to teach every child that is in front of you, not just the ones that we find easiest. But yeah, we're challenging those expectations all the time. I think one of the most interesting things is when you talk to the children, because they reveal
always
a lot. Yeah. They don't have no filter. They'll tell you exactly who said what to them and when, and that's your opportunity. When they tell you X member of staff said whatever in a lesson or whatever, that's your chance. You have to get in there and have that conversation.
Yeah. Kids will always expose you.
They are honest, too honest.
I've got a question. It's more so in my time in education, I've seen like a massive difference in like money money that's available and what you can do. How have kind of things changed in your tenure as a head? Like just managing budgets and all those kind of things.
Yeah, it's really difficult. It's really difficult, and the hardest thing about it, there are certain things in schools which are immovable. So whatever happens with your finances, you need to have a teacher in front of every single child for 5 hours a day. You can't change that. So the problem is, of course, is that when there is a squeeze on your funding, the things that go first are the things that you don't want to lose, but actually you can lose, because in a kind of a purely functional sense, you don't need them, even though you believe that you do. So the problem with that, of course, is it's your mentors and your counsellors, your support staff, and those are usually the people in your school who are most supportive of your most vulnerable. And it's difficult. I'm not going to sit here and say we've been able to maintain every provision that we wanted. You have to make tough decisions. But what you try to do, and again, this is one of those things where you try and kind of have these little mechanisms in your head to kind of keep you grounded. You try to lose what you can afford to lose rather than what's easy to lose.
Okay.
Because that's the thing, that the danger and the risk is that you cut what is easiest to cut, rather than actually saying, in terms of value, what is it that we really need to hold on to? And so even if there's something else which is less valuable, which is harder to lose, I'd rather lose that if possible.
Support staff.
I think support staff do not get the flowers that they deserve, because they spend arguably the most time with the children, like playground duty, doing interventions, giving them one-to-one support in class, if they take them out, and sometimes they kind of just fade into the background because everyone's so focused on teachers and middle management. But shout out to support staff.
Well, when you think about those people, if you think of an image of a member of staff in a school giving a child a big hug, almost inevitably it's a support member of staff, because they form those kind of relationships with the kids. They're so important. So important.
No, 100%. So just going back to kind of calm leadership and the stuff you do kind of outside of education, are there any kind of leadership lessons that where you've been working with people maybe in the private sector or outside of education directly translate over?
My view is that leadership has a real generic quality to it, because ultimately, what is leadership? Leadership is trying to create the right conditions for people to be able to thrive and do their best. In the educational context, that's your staff members and your kids. In someone else's context, it could be a community, employees, whatever. So I think for me, the most important things really is thinking about how you deal with people, and being really clear that in managing people and in leading people, you have to, in my view, it's a service. You're giving service. As a leader, I serve those people who I have responsibility for, and that applies across the board. It's interesting because I do a lot of coaching, and it's tricky because when I coach people from within the education sector, what I find is that I struggle to kind of stay in my coaching role because I feel like I want to give an answer. So I'm sort of slipping, so I'm slipping into a bit of mentoring. I want to say, no, just do this or whatever. But the people that I coach who are not within the education sector, I don't know their answers. So actually, I stay in that coaching role a lot easier. And what I find is that I learn so much about them and their industries that I find it really fascinating. But there are universal truths that are still there, which is ultimately we are leading people. That's the most fundamental thing for me. Systems and processes, great. They're really important, but they are there to support your leadership and not to replace it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no. So a lot of the people who... So I was on the... Aspiring Heads when you did the talk recently. That was really good. What kind of working with aspiring leaders in education, what are you hearing is like the biggest barrier for people who are in aspiring to leadership or in leadership? What are you hearing like this is the bit that's getting people?
It's fear. Fear of accountability. You know, when I first got this job, I remember having a conversation with my dad and saying, do you know what, it's really weird, Dad. You know, my whole teaching career, I had this thing in my head. I wanted to be a head teacher. I knew from my second year in teaching, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And the moment I became a head, I thought, my God, I've never felt so vulnerable in my life. Do you know what I mean? It's really weird. I felt protected all the way through to a certain extent. And then you get the job and suddenly you're in charge. And it's scary. And when I look at what education is like now and what it's like to be a school leader, and I speak to people who are obviously considering whether that's for them, it's a fear. It's a fear of the accountability, the whole Ofsted thing. It's a fear of the workload of it, and people are worried about burnout. It's how a colleague's going to treat me, because we know that there are certain barriers that are there, particularly for people who come from minoritized communities. And I use that word deliberately because I think it's an action rather than a fact. You know, we have been minoritized, we're not a minority. And I think those things are real, and that fear of not being given an opportunity or not being given a fair go once you've been given the opportunity is another reason why people just they're kind of like, no, I'm happy at my level. I don't need to go.
Stay.
I don't need
I'm
to go
happy
any higher
to.
than that. And I'm trying everything I can to encourage people to think differently because it can be so, but it doesn't have to be so.
Yeah. If I'm going to be honest, I think that has been an element to my career. Yeah, like a bit of fear, a bit of will I fit in? Will my mind all right? And then you get there and you realise, hold on, I should have been here ages ago. Yeah.
And do you need to fit in?
Yeah, true.
You need to. You need to be able to get into the door.
Yeah.
So you have to present yourself in a certain way to be given opportunities, because there's always someone who has to say yes. But once you're in there, then you have to be you as much as you can be. That's not easy.
We were talking about the same thing in a week, weren't we, Rena? Yeah.
Takes a lot of courage. It's not easy.
Well, you should always replace fear with favour.
I like that. That's really nice. Yeah. And I think, we talk about, like I mentioned earlier on about imposter syndrome. And I always say, one of the biggest imposters is fear. Because fear is up here.
All completely up there,
you know. And that doesn't make it easy to overcome it. But the more often you challenge that fear, the more often you step out of it, the easier it becomes to do it, because you start to realise that actually on the other side of that usually is a reality which is nothing like the reality that you were fearful of.
And I think also people are fearful because they sometimes think that they have to have this facade of knowing it all and having all of the answers. But, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying to your team, do you know, I'm actually not sure about this. Let me go away and come back. We'll find out together. You can't be this all-knowing being as a leader. I think just, being honest with the
I think so.
team is important.
Humility is important.
Yeah.
And I have no qualms in telling people that I don't know. You know, I say to my staff, we're trying out this new initiative. How do we know it's going to work? I don't know. We don't know it's going to work. I believe it's going to work because we've thought it through and blah, 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 you know, all that kind of stuff. But you don't know. Who knows? I always think, you know, if you look back a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever, how many times could you say to yourself, I can't believe that I made that decision, or I can't believe, you know, what was I thinking? Because we make mistakes all the time. So one of my ambitions in life is to be less wrong today than I was yesterday. You have to accept it. Being wrong is a fact of life. And so, you know, admitting that you don't know, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you have to be able to utilize the wisdom around you to be the person that ultimately makes the decision as the leader. But how you get there is utilizing the skills, knowledge, experience of the people around you. You shouldn't, you know, if you feel that you have to know everything, then you are going to be continuously under unrealistic pressure.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. You don't need to know everything.
I think that is something with when going into leadership. Yeah, you really do, with that imposter syndrome as well. I have to know everything, and I don't. You're more scared of being caught out for not knowing something than just saying, you know what, I don't know that. Let's move forward. Yeah.
But the reality is like, you know, if I look at my leadership team, you know, my school business manager knows far more about running a business and finances than I will ever know. Yeah. You know, my people who lead on teaching and learning, they know more about it than me. Yeah. When they're doing the training sessions and, you know, doing CPD, I'm learning too, because they know this stuff, and it's right. People should know lots. Otherwise, if you know more than everyone else, then what's the point of having a team around you? Yeah. So yeah.
Brilliant. You've correct me if I'm wrong. You've done a lot of kind of advocacy work, social justice. Correct me if I remember seeing you did some stuff with. Is it Show Racism the Red Card?
Yeah.
Are you still working with them as a coach?
I'm a trustee.
Oh, you're a trustee.
Yeah, so I'm one of the 2 co-vice chairs. Of the charity. They do some wonderful. I love the charity, and you get some really good opportunities to influence. I think that's really the key thing. So they do a lot of stuff around education in schools, and they do it obviously through the use of sport and sport icons and all the rest of it. But the biggest thing at the moment is we're on a campaign to make sure that anti-racism gets onto the national curriculum, and so we get opportunities to meet with influential people who are there to make those decisions and try to convince them that it's a really important thing. In Wales, it already is. On the national curriculum.
So why do you think Wales is far ahead of the UK? I don't know. It might be a political question, but they did it about 2 years ago.
Yeah, they did. They did. Well, if I were talking to the guys that Show Racism, they would certainly say they had a lot to do with it. They're very, very active in Wales, and they've always said that the Welsh government has been far more receptive to the ideas that they've tried to push than the guys in England. And so I think that certainly, you know, they will feel they've had a role to play with that. You know, to what extent, I guess, you know, that would be for the government over there to kind of comment on. But yeah, certainly they're ahead of us in that regard. And it's one of the things that we're trying to do is to get it on the agenda over here as well.
Do you think sometimes in leadership, when issues of kind of race and diversity come up, do you think there are leaders who are scared of kind of getting it wrong or putting their foot in it?
Yeah, 100%.
How would you coach around that, or how would you advise, like in calm leadership? It's such a touchy. Have I said it wrong? Did I get it? Did I say this bit right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a strong believer in trusting your gut instinct. I feel like our instincts have figured things that our brains haven't caught up with yet. How often do you get to a situation where something happens and after the event, when it kind of comes to fruition, you think that's what it was? Yeah, I had there was a doubt in my mind.
Yeah, you knew,
and I couldn't put my finger on what it was, but I knew that this wasn't the right thing. Yeah, and it turns out a certain way. I feel you have to trust that a lot. So I talk to people about trusting those instincts, but also it does take a lot of courage, because the whole thing around diversity and racism, it's so it's so touchy. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, I've had those battles myself. I've talked before about being a black leader and that challenge of having to edit yourself in order to try to fit in. I would drive into school with my reggae music, bass line thumping in the back and all the rest of it.
Love it.
And as I'm approaching the school gate, I noticed, without even kind of thinking, automatically I turn it down. I'm thinking, why am I doing that? Why? You edit yourself in certain ways, and I think that, but it takes courage, but it also takes being comfortable. So what I always say to people is, look, you've got to determine for yourself your level of comfort, and then be courageous enough to stick with it. Don't do what you're not comfortable with, because that's then you're not going to be able to be effective anyway.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, be honest if you don't know or you're not sure. Just be honest. Yeah, okay. All right. Also, this is a question. This is one of my favorite questions. Kind of just thinking about, and if you could go back to your younger self stepping into leadership.
Yeah.
What would you say? What's the first thing, like if almost there was this scenario where you were the head, but your young self was just coming into leadership, and you had to pull yourself into a room.
Yeah.
Know that little talk that.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would tell me to believe in myself, and I would tell me that your journey is going to be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be up and down. It's going to be painful. People are going to show you who they really are, and that is going to shock you at times. But it's part of the journey. And actually, in becoming the person that you will ultimately become, it's necessary for you to learn those lessons, and it's okay. And I think that for me is the key thing. It's okay, because it's normal. People hide that stuff. They don't talk about that stuff enough. So when you're going through it, you feel somehow like you're the only one.
Yeah, shame and
And the reality is it's not true. I coach enough people now to know that everybody feels that stuff. Yeah. So we should talk about it more. That's what I would say to myself. It's okay to feel the way you're going to feel when things get difficult, because with faith, with perseverance, and with a bit of courage and a bit of good luck behind you, you're going to get through it, and you'll be stronger coming through the other end as a result, because your purpose determines that it's what you need to do.
I'm not going to lie, I slightly feel like I'm getting a...
free coaching session.
Yeah! Because I'm like, yeah.
I think that's one of the best responses I've ever heard to that question, to be fair.
Okay. Thank you.
Genuinely.
I appreciate that.
All right, before I wrap up, I've got one more question from my free coaching session. It would be, as an educator, what's one decision you've made as a leader that you would do differently now? So one thing that you went for, but like in hindsight, with the experience, and that you would might change and do slightly differently.
Do you know what? As you ask in the question, immediately in my head I thought, I can't think of one single thing, but I can think of a theme that I've often reflected on a lot. I think that I have developed my inclusive approach progressively as I've gone through my headship. I'm better now at it than I was at the beginning. So one of my biggest regrets looking backwards now are, that tough decision that a leader makes when you exclude a child permanently.
Yeah.
I've done a lot in my career. And one of the things that I look back on now is I wonder how many of those were genuinely, I had to make that decision. Because I know that in the last few years, I've had a few situations where I could have made that decision and I haven't done. Because I've thought, actually, you know what? I cannot do this to this young person. And I believe that despite the fact that maybe some people may think that it should be, it deserves to be, I don't think we are at the end of the road with this person. We can continue to work with them and we can manage them through this. And there were definitely times earlier in my headship where that pause and that thought was not applied as strongly as I do now. So I would want to go back through all of those decisions I made, all those permanents, and review them all and say, right, which ones really need to be. Some of them definitely would have happened anyway, but there are some where I think possibly it could have had a different outcome, and I regret that.
I appreciate that is candid and that's honest, especially around exclusions. Yeah.
Devastating.
All right, listen. Where can we contact you? How can we? Because I know you've got a book coming out. Yes. How can we get the book?
Need to mention that.
Talk to us as we wrap this up.
So I'm on social media. Yeah. So if you search Patrick Cozier or Calm Leadership, you're bound to find me. I'm mostly active on LinkedIn, also Insta. Also, I'm still on X. I'm not off X yet. Okay. I'm still on there, fighting my corner. I'm just starting to dabble a little bit now with TikTok. Okay. I'm messing around with TikTok. And that's all right. So I do my little videos and stuff. But yeah, if you can find me on any of those platforms. Yes, I have the book coming out. Calm Leadership, my first ever book.
Congratulations.
Never ever thought I would write a book, but that's coming out in October. It kind of goes some of the stuff we've been talking about today, some of those lessons that I've learned along the way. And yeah, if anyone needs any help or guidance, I also coach people. I also do keynote speeches, all that kind of stuff as well.
I think you may have a new customer. I think
that would be lovely. and all of that in my ample spare time when I'm not being a head teacher.
Yeah, leading a school with 1,500 students.
I still do the job 19 years in and I'm not going anywhere for some time yet. So still enjoying the bread and butter of what I do. That's Beautiful. The main thing.
Patrick, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. And I hope any aspiring leaders are really, you should have this on repeat. Watch this a few times because there are some gems. Even myself, been in the game a little while, I've taken some serious gems. So really appreciate you coming on.
It's been a pleasure. Really honoured to have me on.
Yes, and make sure you people are liking, subscribing, sharing, all of that good stuff on YouTube because you're getting quality content here. So yes, please. Thank you, Patrick. All right.
Welcome.